اوكي سو السلام عليكم رمضان مبارك سعيد اتمنى تكونوا بخير ان شاء الله. As I told you, today we are going to see this text about culture and communication, and I hope that you have already downloaded the texts that I have put for you on the e-learning platform, and I have also put for you some documents about how to write summary, and I hope that you have understood these documents. And also I have put for you some documents about how to read a text. What are the main steps that we should follow if you want to read text in a good manner? So now, first, I want to begin with this text concerning communication and culture, and then before ending this session, we will talk about how to write summary, because I suppose that you will be asked to give me at least 3 summaries of the text we have to see together. Okay, we have 5 texts, and at least I want you to give me at least 3 summaries. Okay, so let's first see this text, which is about communication and culture, and I hope that you can see the text. I'm sharing with you the text. I will, as usual, I will do the first reading for you, and then we try to explain the text and to see different definitions of culture, communication, and what does it mean intercultural communication. Okay, so if you have questions, you can just either write them, okay, and I can see them and answer your questions, or you can use your microphones, and then we try to, but don't use all your microphones at the same time, so as we can communicate easily and fluently. So the text we are going to study today is about communication and culture. The word culture has 2 meanings. In most Western languages, culture usually means civilizations or refinement of the mind, and in particular, the results of such refinement like education, art, and literature. This is culture in the narrow sense of the word. Culture in the anthropological sense of the word has a broader meaning. It refers to both the activities that are supposed to refine the mind, as well as the ordinary and menial things in life, like greetings, showing or not showing feelings, keeping certain physical distance from others, eating and drinking. One of the often used definitions of culture in the anthropological sense of the word is it is the collective programming of the mind which distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from one another. You see, in this first paragraph, what does the writer want to do? He is trying to define, okay, culture. What does it mean, culture? Okay, and I think that the importance of this text is that when we talk about culture, I think that nowadays, or actually, there is no country or nation that is culture free. It means that all communities, all groups of people, or societies have culture, and we are going to define and to see the definitions some researchers and scholars have given to culture so as to understand it. So it is one of the basic ingredients of society. It means that each society has its own culture. Some researchers even talk about communities or small groups, because culture, as we will see, is defined in different manners and in different ways by different scholars and researchers. Culture generally is used to refer to all the activities, okay? Bear this in mind, that culture is used to refer to all the activities of life, whether these are social, physical, external, internal, okay? It means that all the activities that happen or that take place in our life are said to be a culture, okay, or components of culture, okay. Its material components include, okay, we can see culture. Generally, I'm talking in a general way, in buildings, for instance, furniture, clothing, music, okay. Every our musical instruments and other tangible stuff, okay? In all these things we can talk about culture, okay? All these are manifestations or are elements of a culture of society. So it is the sum total of all the tangible and intangible, okay? Something tangible, palpable, that we can touch, we can physically, it means, okay? Including art and craft, okay? We talk about, when we talk about culture, we talk about art, we talk about craft, we talk about all things, all activities that happen in our society, okay? So culture, okay, according to this first paragraph, is the human medium that translates and governs, okay? It translates, okay? It manifests, okay? It is through, okay, culture that we manifest our activities and governs our actions. We will see that how does culture governs our actions and behaviors. It means that it is through this culture that we influence and we are influenced, okay? So it is culture, or culture is said to be a human medium, okay, that translates and governs man's actions and gives meaning to what he does or consciously refrains from it, okay? When we talk about culture, we mean that culture is defining our behavior, okay? What we should do and what we should not do, okay? Things that are forbidden, okay? Things that are allowed and things that are not allowed, or things that are forbidden, okay? And I think that you know that the word culture, and if you have done some etymology, even in French, you have studied the word, I think, culture, you have said that its origin, or its Latin origin, is the first word colore, which means, okay, to build or to cultivate, okay? To build or to cultivate. The meaning of Latin word, apparently, or this word or this meaning or this Latin meaning, means that culture is something opposite to nature, okay? When we talk about culture, we talk about something that is opposite to nature, okay? Because culture is something that is built, okay? It is cultivated, but nature is something that is innate, intrinsic. In other words, culture is said to be constructed while nature is innate, okay? And our society is, as you may notice, is a mix between culture and nature, okay? Is this clear? Is this clear? Yes? I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm not going too fast. If I'm going too fast, you can just tell it to me, I will, okay? So, one of the scholars defines culture, okay? And now I'm giving you a definition of culture as a fuzzy set of attitudes, okay? Fuzzy, it means something that is not clear, okay? Something that is, as we say in French, flou, okay? Culture is a fuzzy set of attitudes. He's talking about attitudes. He's talking about beliefs, okay? And behavior, conventions, and basic assumptions and values that are shared by a group of people. You see that when we talk about culture, we talk about attitudes, beliefs, which means les croyances, okay? Beliefs and behavioral conventions, okay? How we behave, les comportements, and basic assumptions and values, les valeurs, that are shared. And he is talking about a group. It means that when we talk about culture, we talk about communities, we talk about society, we talk about groups, okay? And he defines culture as being fuzzy, it means not clear, okay? Set of attitudes, beliefs, okay? And behavioral conventions and values that are shared by a group of people and that influence each member. It means when we talk about living in a group or in society, it means that we influence the behavior of the others and the influence our behavior, okay? So now I think that the idea of, or the definition of culture is clear now, okay? It is a set of attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, okay, that we share in a group or in society, okay? And it is manifested in arts, okay, artifacts. The writer is talking about, okay, feelings, okay, of showing or not showing feelings, okay? So this is the first definition he's talking about, okay? And in this first paragraph, he's talking about two kinds of definition. He is talking about a broader definition, okay, and a narrow definition, okay. And when he says the word culture has two meanings, okay, it has two meanings, okay. In most Western languages, okay, and the word is derived, if we study some etymology of the word, we will find that its origin in Latin, it means that something that is built, something that is constructed. And in this case, it usually means civilization or refinement, okay? According to the writer of this text, culture has two meanings. The first one is, it means civilization, and the second one, it is about refinement, something refined, something that is developed, okay, of the mind, and in particular the results of such refinement like education, art, and literature. And in this case, he is talking about arts, education, and literature. This is the second meaning of culture according to the writer, okay? So this is culture in the narrow sense. And according to the writer, I'm talking in words, I'm using the words of the writer, okay? He says that in the narrow sense of the word, culture is both civilization or refinement, okay? And when he talks about refinement, he's talking about arts, he's talking about education, okay? He is talking about literature, okay? Now he is going to give us another wider, okay, definition, and he will see it from an anthropological, okay, perspective, okay, lens, okay, anthropology. He will uses an anthropological perspective to explain or to give a definition of culture, okay. Culture, he says, in the anthropological sense of the word, has a broader meaning, okay. Now he is talking about broader meaning, and he is using, okay, an anthropological, okay, lens, okay, he will explain culture using an anthropological, okay, view, okay. It refers to both the activities that are supposed to refine the mind as well as ordinary, okay, he's talking, and also when talking about using anthropological view, okay, or perspective, it is also about two main things, okay, menial things, it means ordinary things, routine activities, that's activities that we do every day, okay. It refers to both the activities that are supposed to refine the mind as well as ordinary and menial things, okay. Here he is talking about refined things, and he is also talking about menials, it means things, ordinary things that we do in every day in our life, okay. And he is giving examples of these activities like greetings, showing or not showing feelings, keeping certain physical distance, okay, what we call proxemic from others, eating and drinking. These are also seen as manifestations of culture according to the writer. One of the often used definition of culture in the anthropological sense, he says, is its collective programming of the mind. Okay, and now he is talking about, as I said before, about groups, about collectivities, about societies, okay? One of the often used definitions of culture in the anthropological sense of the word is it is the collective programming of the mind which distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from another. And now he is talking about groups, and he's talking about programming. It means, as I said before, it influences each member's behavior. It means that culture is shaping, okay, it contributes to shape, okay, the behavior of people, of individuals in society. It means that the behavior of people in a group is shaped by culture. It is influenced by the culture of the group in which he is living, or the society in which he is living, okay. So I think, is it clear now? Is it clear now? Should we move to the second paragraph, or do you have questions about this paragraph, about the definitions? Yes? So, to sum up, we can say that culture, okay, is a way of life of people, okay? It is, according to the second definition that the writer is doing, you can say that culture is the way of life people are living. It is also a social system which comprise the values, norms of ways of behaving in human society. Okay, culture can also be thought of as a part of the human part of the environment. In other words, culture is the non-biological aspect of life. Okay, and in this case, we are talking about that everything people learn and do are not related to their biological traits or aspects of such people culture. Okay, it means that all the elements that are not part of our nature are said to be culture. All things that are not innate are things that are constructed, that are okay, are said to be a culture, manifestations of culture. Okay, so now communication. What do we mean by communication? Communication, as you know, is okay. Communication is okay a process in which we are. What do we do in communication? How can we explain communication? It is a kind of sharing. It is a kind of exchange. Okay, it is of transfer of meanings, of feelings. Okay, of ideas. Okay, so even in culture is we talk about communication because culture and communication are very interrelated. Okay, these concepts are strongly related to each other. Okay, in the sense that individual cannot learn or acquire any aspect of culture without going through the process of communication, because even culture is something that, as I said, is not innate but something that is acquired, something that is inherited from our parents, from our okay, that we acquire from our friends. There is a kind of exchange. That's why the writer is talking about communication and culture. And before and after, we are going to talk about intercultural communication and see how this cross-cultural communication can influence okay people. So let's move to the second paragraph. Cultural differences manifest themselves in several ways. Okay, and you see that cultures are different from one group to another. Okay, from one society to another. Okay, sometimes some researchers talk about culture not only when we are talking or using a different language. It means that we are talking about another culture, but sometimes within the same society there are some different cultures. Okay, and they talk even about the generation gap. For instance, some researchers have done some work talking about culture, considering that even people from different ages are people from different cultures. For instance, teenager at the age of 14, okay, he is living or his culture is different from that of an old person who is 80 or 70 or 60. It means that you see that culture in this case is considered from one group to another. Okay, in this case, culture is not only seen or regarded as being the characteristics or the feature of another community or another nation, but within the same society we can have different communities and different groups, and these groups can be defined either relating to gender, to age, okay, to sex, okay, or all these, okay. Sorry, when we talk about gender, we talk about okay, either being female or males. Okay, so in this question also we talk about differences or different cultures. Okay, so cultural differences manifest themselves in several ways. They are represented at the skin of as the skin of an onion, indicating that symbols represent the most superficial manifestation of culture and values, the deepest, with heroes and rituals in between. Okay, now he's going to talk, or he's talking about the cultural differences, and he is using a metaphor. Okay, and the kind of metaphor he is using, he is talking about vegetable. He is talking about an onion. Do you know the skins of the onion? Okay, they are represented as the skin of an onion. It means that it has several skins. Okay, indicating that symbols represent the most superficial. Okay, he's talking about superficial manifestations of culture and the deepest, and he is going to explain okay what are the symbols and what are the values. Okay, so as we can better understand what does he mean by culture. Okay, So, cultural differences manifest themselves in several ways. They are represented as the skin of an onion. He is using a metaphor. He is referring to a vegetable. He is referring to an onion, okay? Indicating that symbols represent the most superficial manifestations of culture and values the deepest within heroes and rituals in between. So he is going to talk about symbols. Why? What does he mean by symbols? He is going to talk about, okay, values, okay, and he is going to talk about heroes and rituals, and these are used, okay, to explain, okay, the different, okay, components of a culture. Okay, the symbols of culture are, of course, things like a flag, coat of arms, logotype, slogan, but also clothes, language use, such as which words you use to greet people, which rate and loudness of speaking you consider normal, whether or not you interrupt people, and nonverbal communication, which distance between people you consider normal, proxemics, whether or not you look at people when you speak to them, occlusics, whether or not you like long silence in a conversation. Okay, so you see that he is talking the first element. Okay, he is talking about symbols, and he is trying to define or to tell us what symbols are. Okay, according to the writer, symbols of culture are, of course, things like the flag. No, each nation has its flag. It is a symbol for this nation. Okay, for instance, the Moroccan, as Moroccans are proud of our flag, which is red with a green, okay, star in it. So the flag is a symbol of, okay, symbol of this culture. A coat of arms, for instance, a logotype, a slogan, but also clothes, language use. Okay, language, even the use of language is considered by the writer as, okay, as considered as a symbol of that culture. Okay, use such as which words you use to greet people. Okay, the words we use in our greeting, for instance, in Arabic we say Assalamu alaikum, or goodbye in English, hello. Okay, all these words or greeting words are used or are seen or are considered by the writer as being, okay, symbols of a culture. Which rate and loudness of speaking you consider normal. Okay, even the loudness, okay, the pitch. Okay, how are you speaking fast, are you speaking slowly, are you speaking loudly. Okay, all these are symbols of, okay, whether or not you interrupt people. Okay, sometimes it is a question of politeness. In other cultures, for instance, people can interrupt you but when you are speaking, but they don't consider this as being impolite. For instance, in our culture, if somebody is talking and you interrupt him, okay, and you don't ask for permission to talk, okay, it may be considered as being impolite. So these are the differences between, okay, culture, and he is, okay, and non-verbal communication. Okay, non-verbal communication, it means that you are using, okay, your hands while talking, you are using other signs other than language, which distance between people you consider. Okay, and this, I think there is an important book about that by Edward T. Hall. It is about proxemics. It means the distance. Okay, is it an intimate distance, or, okay, how much far is your interlocutor, the person you are speaking to. Okay, for instance, someone will not accept, okay, that you come and talk to him in his ear if you are not familiar to him. It means that if you talk to somebody in his ear, in his ear, sorry, it means that you are familiar with him. Okay, so all these are manifestations. Okay, and some people, when observing people communicating, they can tell you what kind of culture these people belong to. Okay, so in this case, we are talking about proxemics. It means the distance between you and your interlocutor. Whether or not you look at people when you speak to them, okay? And you see that even in our culture, when you greet somebody and you don't look at him, he will tell you it is not polite. Please, when you greet me, okay, when you salute me, try to look at me. You see that these are symbols also of culture, and we call this occlusics, okay? Whether or not you will like long silences in conversations, okay? So now he is giving us some examples of symbols he's talking about. Okay, the second layer is heroes. The first layer, okay, remember that when he is talking about this, he is using the metaphor of the onion. It means different layers, different levels, okay, different skins, okay. And the first layer, according to the writer, is symbols. The second one is heroes, okay. Heroes, it describes those as persons alive or dead, real or imaginary, who possesses characteristics which are highly prized in a culture. Important political persons like Mandela, but also strip or literary figures like Mr. Bean, for instance. And he is giving two different examples, okay? He's talking about Nelson Mandela and his role in the political figure, okay, charismatic figure in the South African, okay, fight against apartheid, okay, and he is talking about hero. He is a national hero, or even a continental hero, okay. And he is also giving us an example of Mr. Bean, okay. Do you know the comedian, the English comedian, okay? And now he is given, okay, when you hear talking about Mr. Bean, it refers you to the, okay, English, okay, way of humor, okay. It means it refers to the English, okay, way of humor and English culture. So the first level, he is talking about symbols. The second level, he is talking about heroes, and he is giving us two examples. And you can here you can imagine all the names, all the heroes, even in our Moroccan culture, in the Arab culture, in the Islamic culture, okay, there are certain names, okay, heroes, maybe dead or alive, but they are considered as, okay, constituents and components of culture, okay. And he is talking about rituals. The rituals of culture are the activities that are, technically speaking, superfluous in reaching desired ends, but which within a culture are considered socially essential. Okay, he's talking about les rituels. Okay, rituals of a culture are the activities that are, technically speaking, superfluous in reaching desired ends, but which within a culture are considered as socially essential. They are therefore carried out for their own sake. Ways of greeting and paying respect to others, social and religious ceremonies. And he is talking about, I think that the word ritual, it is like in French, okay, un rituel, okay, les rituels religieux, les rituels, okay. So even business and political meetings organized for seemingly rational reasons often serve mainly ritual purposes, okay. A good observer can detect the differences in symbols, heroes, and rituals between his or her own culture and another culture, because those aspects are reflected in practices, the things people do. Okay, now he tells us that this idea of symbols, rituals, and heroes, okay, even ordinary persons, people, yes, if observing other cultures, can find the differences, okay, that determine cultures, okay. And he says that a good observer can detect the difference in symbols, heroes, and rituals, okay. For instance, if you have to compare, okay, some symbols that are parts of the Moroccan culture with symbols from different cultures, okay, the French or the British or the American or the Japanese, you will see that we have some different symbols, okay, and each nation, each culture has its own symbols. The same thing for heroes and rituals. We have different rituals. For instance, we have our rituals. For instance, now we are fasting, okay, we are during the month, the holy month of Ramadan. We have our own rituals that are different from the rituals of the Christians, for instance, or the Jews. You see that these are religious rituals, okay. So rituals are part of the culture, okay. And now he is also talking about values, and values, according to him, are considered to be the core of culture. The core, it is the most important thing in a culture, okay. They are very, very important, okay. Values are considered to be the core of culture. Values, are broad tendency to prefer certain states of affairs over others. The valeur, okay, values, okay. And if you remember the definition I have given you, okay, it is about values, okay, attitudes, okay, and behavioral conventions. And here he is talking about values as being the most important the principle, the key elements of a culture. Okay, values are broad tendencies. How does he define values? He says that there are broad tendencies to prefer certain states of affairs over others. For example, what is good in a culture and what is bad. Okay, so it is values. They help us. They permit us to assess, to evaluate, to say which things are wrong and which things are good. Okay, it means that, as I said at the very beginning, things that are allowed and things that are forbidden. Okay, it is, we have certain values, and according to these values they are used as criteria to evaluate, okay, things that are to be done and things that are to be, okay, banned. Okay, allowed things and forbidden things, bad things and good things. Okay, this is how he defines values. Okay, he says that values are broad tendencies to prefer certain states of affairs over others. For example, what is good in a culture and what is bad, what is ugly and what is beautiful. Okay, even for beauty, for instance, there are certain values in different cultures. Okay, beauty is not defined in the same thing or the same way. A beautiful thing or beautiful girl, for instance, is not viewed as beautiful, for instance, in different cultures, because there are different criteria as far as beauty is concerned. Okay, what is dirty and what is clean, what is irrational and what is rational, those values are learned and implicitly. Okay, as I said at the very beginning, that when we talk about culture, we don't think about innate things. Okay, he makes difference between culture and nature. Everything that is culture, something that is learned, something that is acquired, something that is constructed. Okay, so, and he says that these values are learned, are acquired, they are passed from generation to generation. Okay, from one group to another group. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast. Is it clear up till now? Yes? Yes, is it clear? I'm not going fast, I think. So, communication, as I said, now he is going to talk about miscommunication in intercultural communication. But before talking about miscommunication, we are talking about communication, and communication is generally defined. Okay, when we talk about communication, okay, it is generally defined as the transfer, okay, of meaning, the exchange of meaning, of values, okay, of ideas. Okay, and communication, okay, as I said, the origin of the word in Latin, communicare, it means sharing. Okay, when we talk about effective communication, we talk about sharing ideas, values, attitudes. Okay, it means it's sharing. And to have an effective communication, we should have a two-way communication, not only one-way communication, which means that there is no, when we talk about one-way communication, there is no feedback, there is no interaction. It is not question of exchange, it is just question of disseminating, of transfer. It means that we are transferring, we are disseminating, okay, we are informing. But when we talk about communication, we talk about two-way communication. There is an interaction, okay, there is a feedback. Okay, as you know, in the process of communication there are different components, and one of the most important elements is the feedback. Okay, and it is due to feedback that we can know if our receiver or our, okay, has understood what we are telling him. There is an exchange. It means there is a two-way, and communication becomes a cyclic procedure in this case. So he is talking about communication in intercultural communication is often consequences of differences in values between cultures. But before talking about miscommunication in cultural or intercultural communication, what does the writer mean by intercultural communication? Intercultural communication basically means communication across different cultures. Okay, different cultures, and in this case we talk about either intercultural communication or cross-cultural communication. This means that when two people or more from different cultural backgrounds, okay, each of us has his cultural background. Okay, as a Moroccan, as a man from Morocco, from the Oriental region of Morocco, I have my cultural background. Okay, and I interact and communicate with other people, okay, with this background. Okay, always it is there, it is with me, it is present. This is my cultural background as being Moroccan, as being Arab, as being Muslim, as being African. You see that we have this background, which, okay, my education, okay, my social status, okay, all these are form or are parts of my cultural background that manifests itself when I'm communicating, okay, with other people. So basically, intercultural communication means communication across different cultural boundaries. This means that when two people or more, okay, with different cultural backgrounds interact and communicate with each other or one another, intercultural communication is said to have taken place. Okay, so this is what we mean by intercultural communication. So in our case, the writer is talking about miscommunication in intercultural communication is often a consequence of differences in values between cultures. Say that he has defined values, and he told us that values are the criteria that help us to say which behaviors, which attitudes are good, which are bad, which things that are dirty, which things that are clean, which things that are okay. So you see that miscommunication, it means that the fact that we do not communicate effectively is due to this. Okay, it is a consequence of difference in values. People from cultures with different values will not communicate because they have different values. But if we want to have an effective communication, there should be an agreement, okay, consensus about values. We should have the same values. If we don't have the same values, or we don't agree on the same values, at least we cannot communicate effectively. And in this case, the writer is talking about miscommunication in intercultural communication. It means that people from different cultures having different cultural background, okay, if they do not agree on the set of values, they will not have an effective or correct communication, sharing of attitudes and feelings and ideas, okay, and they will not understand each other because they do not agree on the same values. Okay, miscommunication in intercultural communication is often a consequence of difference in values between cultures, just because values are not reflected in practices. This can be illustrated by another way of depicting culture, and he is giving us an image, the iceberg. Do you know what is an iceberg? So the iceberg, the floating iceberg, okay, you see it in movies, you see it in documentaries. The iceberg, it is, okay, an ice, okay, that is, you can see that we can see only the tip of it, okay. That means that 9/10, only 1/10, okay, is floating over the water, and 9/10, the most part, or the huge part of the iceberg is underwater, okay. The iceberg symbolizes culture. And now he's talking about culture, and he's talking about the iceberg. Okay, it means that all that we can see from a culture is like what we can see from the iceberg, only just a very, very, very small part of it. Okay, just 1/10. Okay, so the iceberg symbolizes culture. Small part of it, in fact, only the peak is above water. Okay. You see, when we talk about the iceberg, only a small part of it is, okay, over the water, and the rest, or a huge part of it, is underwater. This part of culture corresponds with the symbols, heroes, and rituals, and it can be easily recognized in intercultural encounters. The major part of the iceberg is underwater; it cannot be seen, and it corresponds with values. You see now why he is talking about rituals, symbols, and values. Okay, he is using them, and he is using a metaphor. He's talking about the iceberg, and he compares the small part that we can see from the iceberg, from culture, as being only a very small part. And these are, according to him, rituals, symbols, and heroes. But the values are compared to the underwater part of the iceberg. They are hidden, okay? They are not manifested. We cannot see them, okay? That's why he talks about miscommunication in cultural or cross-cultural or in intercultural communication, because we can see, okay, manifest things like rituals, as I say, like heroes, okay, like symbols, but values are not put in practice all the time, so as we cannot see them all the time and we do not grasp them easily all the time, okay? If we don't study the culture of other people, of other nations, it means that we cannot grasp it, we cannot understand it, and then we cannot easily communicate, okay, with them. So this is why he is talking about miscommunication. And to illustrate this, he is giving us the example of the iceberg. Just imagine, when talking about culture, see the iceberg and culture. The small part you can see from the iceberg is compared to the three elements he has been talking about: ritual, symbols, and rituals, symbols, and what else? And the underwater part is the values, okay? So we have on the one part heroes, symbols, and rituals, and on the second part we have the values. The apparent elements are rituals, symbols, and heroes, and the hidden part is the values. And mainly, according to the writer, miscommunication in cross-cultural communication is due. It is a consequence that we do not agree on the same values. Is this clear? Is it clear? Yes. Okay, so researchers from different disciplines, okay? So intercultural miscommunication are mostly due to differences between cultures in the part of the iceberg that is underwater. Values, okay? This is clear. So researchers from different disciplines have investigated differences in values between cultures. Researchers have done some research, they have explored, they have examined, have studied, okay, the differences in values between cultures, okay? They have considered, okay, different cultures, and they have tried to study these differences, to analyze the differences, to investigate these differences, okay? Also try to reduce all the different values to as small as possible number of basic values, okay? So they have tried to study and to reduce, okay, these differences to a very small possible number of values. And he is talking about Edward T. Hall, okay, has one basic value: the role of context in the interpretation of communication. And you see, when talking about communication, as I said, that when we communicate in a context. Communication takes place, happens within a context. And when we are communicating, we are sharing, we are transferring, we are disseminating, okay? We are exchanging within a context. And I have been talking about the background, okay? Each of us has his own background, personal background, okay? And these elements are very influential, okay? They impact on communication. And it is one of the theories of Edward T. Hall, and he has published a book about that in 1976. And one of the basic values, according to him, is the role of context in interpretation of communication, okay? When interpreting a communication, we give importance to the context in which communication has taken place or has happened. He argues that every human being is faced with so many perceptual stimuli: sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and bodily sensations, and that is impossible to pay attention to all of them, okay? So he argues that every human being is faced with so many perceptual, he's talking about perceptions, okay? Stimulus, okay? Sounds, sights, smells, tastes, and bodily sensation that is impossible to pay attention to all of them. Okay? He says that it is impossible to pay attention to all these things. So culture differ in the selection of stimuli that they make. And when we talk about stimuli, we talk about response. And here I refer you to the behaviorist theory, okay? Behaviorist theory, and the most known theorist in this field is the Russian Pavlov. Okay, there is a stimuli and there is a response to this stimuli. Okay, cultures differ in the selection of stimuli that they make. According to Hall, cultures differ on continuum that ranges from high to low context. And now, remember that he has been talking about the importance of context in the interpretation of communication, and he is classifying, okay, this context from low to high, two types of context. In higher context culture, the meaning of message is not merely deduced from the words that are uttered, but from the context in the situation. And here, pay attention to what the writer is saying. He is talking about high context cultures. High context cultures and low context cultures, okay? In high context culture, the meaning of message is not merely deduced from the words, okay? It means that the context plays a role in the understanding of communication. The interpretation, the analysis, okay, of communication takes place or takes into consideration the context in which the communication is taking place or is happening, okay? In high context culture, the meaning of message is not merely deduced from the words that are uttered, but from the context and situation. In high context cultures, the words of the sender and the receiver of message are so similar that misinterpretation can hardly occur, okay? In high context culture, the word of the sender and the receiver, means the context, the milieu, the environment in which they are communicating or of a message are so similar that misinterpretation, okay, no wrong interpretation can hardly occur. High context culture are also called implicit cultures. When we talk about high, okay, context culture, we talk about implicit cultures. It means that here we can easily grasp the meaning of communication because we are not only taking into consideration the verbal language, the words they are using, but also all the elements that are taking place, and we are taking into consideration the context of communication. Is this clear? Yes? I'm waiting for you. Yes? Shall we move to the second type of, yeah, he's talking about low context cultures. The meaning of an utterance is almost only deduced, okay? When he's talking about low context culture, he says that the meaning of an utterance is almost only deduced from the words that are uttered. It means that we focus on the words, on the utterances of the verbal communication, okay? This is the difference between the high context, okay, and low context cultures. Is this clear? In low context cultures, the meaning of an utterance is almost only deduced from the words that are uttered. Those cultures are explicit cultures. In the first case, he has been talking about implicit cultures, and in the second case, he's talking about explicit, okay? That means we focus on words, okay? The sender of message leaves nothing to chance and states explicitly what he or she means, okay? In this case, the communicator, the sender, is, okay, using words, okay, to make his message explicit, okay? You don't need to look for other things to understand the message, but just to focus and understand the words, and you will grasp the message, okay? Other stimuli than verbal stimuli are hardly used for the interpretation in low context cultures. So, the writer is using, okay, Edward T. Hall theory, and he's talking about the theory he has published in 1976, in which he gives importance or value to the role of context in the interpretation of communication, and he is using Hall's low context and high context cultures, okay? And he is telling us that the first, or the high context culture, is an implicit culture. It means that the sender or the speaker in a communication or the writer, okay, does not give all the meanings that we have to insert, but we have to also analyze the context in which communication is taking place so as we can grasp the meaning of communication. In the second case, which is about low context culture, he says that these cultures are said to be explicit and we should understand everything from the words, from the verbal communication the sender is using. Okay. Okay, do you have the second page of the text? I'm sorry, I forgot to show you. Okay, the study of intercultural communication is generally associated with the publication of Edward Teholt's book, The Silent Language, published in 1959. Okay, this is a very important book about intercultural communication. Okay, Hall extended the anthropological view of culture to include communication. Later in his popular book, Hall defined culture as basically communication process. You see that Hall, okay, considers culture as basically communication process. Remember all the definitions that we have seen about culture, but now Hall defines culture as only a communication process, which means that culture is about acquired, okay, transferred, okay, elements that are from one generation to another, or from one group to another, or from one person to another. For him, it is just a communication process. Effective intercultural communication involves more than understanding groups' norms. Okay? It is more than, okay, effective intercultural communication involves more than understanding a group's norms. There have been many attempts to identify the skills needed to be more effective in intercultural communication. Skills require message skills, behavior, flexibility, interaction management, and social skills. So, I think that now, with this text, we have seen culture, communication, and intercultural communication, and the writer has been talking about different elements, components of communication. He has been talking about different layers, and he has used the metaphor of the onion to be more explicit, and he has been talking about different levels, different layers. He is talking about symbols, rituals, and heroes on one side, on one part, and he has been talking about values on the other side, or on the other part of the text. And on the next level, he has been talking, or in the next, the following paragraphs, he has been talking about about culture, and he has been comparing culture to an iceberg, and he has been telling us that the apparent or the above water part of culture is like the above water part of the iceberg. And he has been talking about values, heroes, and symbols, and he has compared the underwater part of the iceberg to the values in culture. Okay, and he has been talking about miscommunication in intercultural communication as being a consequence of the difference in values. Is this clear? Yes. Is this clear? So, as I said at the very beginning, okay, culture is a human medium that translates and governs man's actions and gives meanings to what he does, or consciously refrain from it. And in this case, we have been talking about values. Okay, values in our life, okay, influence our behaviors. Okay, what is good, what is bad, what is allowed, what is banned and forbidden. Okay, so, and he has been talking about communication, okay, defining communication as a process of exchange, of transferring, and in this case we are talking about a two-way communication and not only one-way communication. And he has tried to explain culture by giving us examples. Okay, he has talked about a narrow meaning, and then he talked about a broad meaning. And what we have to bear in mind is that the writer in this text is focusing on an anthropological perspective. He is talking about culture and communication and intercultural communication, or cross-cultural communication using or through an anthropological perspective, okay? And he has explained miscommunication as being a consequence, as a result of disagreeing, of not having the same set of values. When we don't have the same set of values, we see things in different ways. And when we say different, we see different or things in different ways from different perspectives, it means that we are not going to agree, and then our communication will not be effective. This is the main idea of this text, okay? And remember that, as I said at the very beginning, when we talk of other cultures, when we talk about other cultures, we don't mean only those who speak a language that is different from ours, or people who live in different country or region. We also mean those who live in the same city or in the same area, okay, who do not share the same social groups, for instance. As I said, that some researchers talk even of different cultures of social groups, and social groups are determined according to the gender question, to the age question, okay? So these are social groups, and they may have different cultures, and some researchers in cultural and intercultural communication talk about different cultures within different social groups, even within the same area, within the same nation, within the same, okay? So is this clear now? I hope so. So now I think that I have already put for you on the e-learning platform 2 documents. The first one is about how to write summary, and you are asked to, the day of the exam, okay, to bring me, okay, at least I have put for you 5 texts, and I want you to, okay, to give me the summaries of at least 3 texts. You have to choose the text you want, but just try to write summary following the instructions I gave you in these papers. So what is a summary? As I said, that summary, also known as an abstract or précis or synopsis, is a shortened version of text, okay? You are not going to copy the text, but to give me a short, okay, a synopsis of the text, okay? The word summary comes from the Latin sum, okay? It means you have to sum the ideas. You have to read the text carefully, each paragraph, and then try to sort the main idea of each paragraph, okay? For instance, if we want to write summary about the text we have just seen, we have to talk about 2 or 3 main important ideas: communication, culture, and intercultural communication, okay? You don't need to give me all the definitions, all the examples in the text, but just to how culture is defined, how communication is defined, what is intercultural communication, and another important element, miscommunication in intercultural communication, okay? So try to focus, okay? Try to focus on the main ideas, okay? So the summary is a brief statement. Try to briefly state what the text is about, okay? And to write a good summary, there are certain steps to follow. First, you have to read the text and try to highlight the important information and try to take notes, okay? The main ideas. And try to use your own words to write them in your own style. So write down the main points of each paragraph. Okay, you have at least 6 paragraphs. For each paragraph, you should have 1 idea. And try to write down the key support points for the main topic, but do not include minor details. It means that don't give me all the details, but just focus on the most important ideas, okay? So, the first thing to do, we should bear in mind that summary should cover the original as a whole, okay? When you have summary, okay, you have all the most important ideas of the text. Okay, don't just focus on one idea and forget the other ideas. Okay, try to, and as I said, that each paragraph has main idea, and this main idea is within the a topic sentence. As I said before, a paragraph has topic sentence and supporting sentences and conclude sentence. Try to find, okay, while reading your paragraphs, try to find the topic sentence, the main idea. Okay, there is always in good written paragraph there is a main idea. Try to find this idea, and then you will find that all the other sentences are just supporting or explaining this main idea. Okay, this is the first thing to do. The material should be, while writing, you should be neutral. Okay, don't be subjective. Okay, don't interpret the text, but just give me a summary of it. It is not a question of interpretation, but just a summary. Okay, the summary should be condensed version of the material presented in your own words. Try to use your own style. Okay, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Okay, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just try to read the text and stand it and take the main ideas and write them in your own style using your own words. Okay, and don't try to add things that are not in the text. Okay, in this case you will not be writing summary, but you will be interpreting, analyzing, okay, investigating the text. But what I want you to do is to write summary, to focus on the ideas. Okay, summary can be tricky to write at first because it is tempting to include specific details. Okay, don't go into details. Okay, summary begins with an introductory sentence that states the article's title, author. Okay, for instance, in our text the title is communication and culture. Okay, a summary should begin, okay, with an introductory sentence in which you introduce the text. Our text is about, okay, or the text about. Okay, or a summary must contain the main thesis or standpoint of the text restated in your own words. Okay, it means, as I said, there is a main idea. The text is about, okay, one focal idea. The most important idea in our text, it is communication and culture. Okay, we should focus on this. Okay, if you remember the first text we have seen together, it is about man and nature. Okay, our text should be about man and his relation to nature. Okay, summary is written in your own words. Okay, don't copy the sentences as they are in the text and put them on paper and pretend that you have written a summary. Okay, a summary is always shorter than the original text. I think I'm clear about that. Okay, if you have 600 words, your summary should be at least 150 words. Should not exceed 1/3 as long as the original text. Summary should contain all the major points. If you quote, okay, if you are using quotes, try to, okay, if you quote anything from the original text, even an unusual word or catchy phrase, you need to put it, or whatever you have quoted, you have to use quotation marks. Okay, so a summary must contain only the ideas of the original text. So these are the most important things while writing your, okay. So for people who are telling me that they have sent me, okay, their summaries, I want hard copies printed with names and your numbers. Okay, written correctly, okay, on clean papers, okay, and printed with your names and apogee numbers. Okay, so as you start to write summary, keep the following in mind. First, you have to write in the present tense. Include the author and the title of the work. Okay, don't forget to include the title. Be concise. Summary should not be equal in length to the original text. And don't put your own opinions, ideas, or interpretations in the summary. And I think this is all about how to write summary. Do you have questions about how to write summary? I said that you will not send it to me, but the day of the exam, you will give them back to me, okay? I said that you should give me at least 3 summaries, okay? I have put for you on the e-platform or e-learning platform 5 texts with their explanations, okay? What I want you to do is, we have seen together 3 texts. I want you to work the summaries, or to do the summaries of at least 3 texts, and you will give them me back, or give them back to me the day of the exam, okay? Try to write them on, okay, separate papers with your names and your apogee numbers, okay? And the other document I have put for you on the e-platform learning is about reading, how to read the text, and this will help you to do your summaries. The first section is about the new vocabulary, the vocabulary you have learned from the text. The new vocabulary, you have to read the text and try to put on this paper, or to write on it, all the new words or vocabulary you have learned using your dictionaries or using your smartphones to look or to fetch definitions, okay? And then the second section is about identifying the main idea or the overall idea of the text, okay? And then you have to write it down, and this will help you, okay? This will be very helpful in reading, analyzing, and understanding the text, and it will help you to write your summaries, okay? If you just follow the steps, okay, in this paper, you can write good summaries. I'm sure you will do it if you just follow the steps in this document. First, try to read the text and understand and put down the new vocabulary and the vocabulary you have looked for in the dictionary, and then try to identify or to put down and write the main or the overall idea, okay? And in this case, identifying the main idea requires that you determine what is important and then put it in your own words, okay, in this section. The following section is about summarizing. It means for each paragraph, you will pick the main idea, okay? And then you have a chart, what I know, okay, what I want and what I learned, and this will help you discussing the text, okay? What I know about, for instance, in our text, we have been talking about communication and culture. What do you know about communication? What do you know about culture? What I want to know and what I have learned from the text, and this will help you discussing the text, okay, during or in the future. Yes, I said at least 3, okay? So, if you don't have any question, I think we'll stop here. I don't know, we have not yet decided about this, but I will inform you as soon as we will decide about it, okay? Either you will be having an oral or written exam, okay? The work you will be doing will help you. If you read the text and stand them and write summaries about them, okay? Using the documents I gave you, I think it will be easy for you. Either it is an oral or a written exam, it will not make the difference. Yes? I think that I'm clear on that question. I know that some of you have already sent their summaries, okay? Using the email or the e-learning platform. What I want you to do is that I want to have papers. I want to have hard copies of your work. Okay, you should print them. Okay, write your names and your apogee numbers and print them. And the day of the exam, you will give them back to me. Okay, I think that I'm clear. I want to have hard copies, not only emails. Okay. I don't know why all of you are asking is the exam to will be oral or written. It doesn't matter, okay? If you read the text and stand them and try to do the work I'm asking you to do, it will be easy. Either it will be written or oral. It doesn't matter, okay? So if you don't have questions, I think that's okay. Yes, one of your friends is writing his question. Yes. So thank you. And when